We continue our investigation of this text. Continue to be encouraged in our path, always attempting to take the next step, always attempting to move forward, even one step beyond what we're currently capable of. And it's easy for us as we take these steps to become discouraged, because we're always being asked again and again to take the next difficult step. Every time that we're asked to take another step, it's a step that we haven't taken. Again and again, we have to deal with the insecurity of feeling like, never done this before, maybe I can't do it. All of the evidence of my entire life says I can't do this. That's a strong set of evidence. Again and again, we're asked to do what we have never done. Every day of our lives we can use, if we wish, as evidence that we can't do it. This is very difficult. It can be overwhelming. My mother raised 3 children, 2 from the age of 0, and 1 from the age of 4. Myself and my 2 sisters, and has now raised part-time 1 child up to the age of 3 and 1 to the age of 1, my sister's children. And she's watched us again and again come to a challenge that we have every reason to believe we can't rise to. The one that she likes to talk about is walking. There's this little kid. Right now, Kai, my nephew, is learning to walk. He can kind of walk. You know how it is. He can take a few steps if one person holds him up and lets him get some nice balance, and then lets him go with some encouragement. He'll stagger his way to someone else who's ready to get him a few feet away. If he can hold your hand, then he can pretty much walk around. Every now and then he loses the support of his legs. They turn out to be somewhere else. And he needs to grab on tight. But soon enough, he gets his legs back under control and finds balance again. Of course, as this happens, he sometimes falls down. Now, as those of you who are familiar with little kids know, little kids are actually designed quite well. And one of the things that is designed quite well about little kids is the placement of pudge. The pudge placement is very intelligent because typically when they fall down backward, and they can bend at the waist and land on a nice fat cushion. Nice soft landing. And then they might be a bit startled, but they're fine. But unfortunately, as some of you know, occasionally they fall down in a different direction. And sometimes there's a hard object in that direction, and it can hurt. It's scary. Spent one's whole life close to the ground, where falling down is impossible. Now suddenly, try to stand up. Strange. Risky. And furthermore, that child, if they were intelligent like we are, they might just analyze, mightn't they? Well, now hold on a second here. I've been alive for hundreds of days now. And for that entire period, I have never been able to walk. We're talking about percentages today, yes? So, we're down to 0% finally. We made it. 0% of the days I've been alive, and I've been alive for many days, I have been incapable of walking. Now that's a strong set of evidence that I cannot walk. I have never been able to walk. And therefore, it's reasonable, since we can often use the past to predict the future, it's reasonable to think that I will never be able to walk. So, it's risky, challenging. I guess I'll give up. Well, my mother watches these children, one after another, learn to walk. Now, of course, this is just one thing. We're all different. Everybody's different. But we all do things like this. Learn to do something we've never done before. All the evidence says we can't do it. And yet we learn how to do it. How do we learn how to do it? Well, typically, risk. Failure. But what she finds most impressive about these children is that they don't exhibit very much of that analysis. As far as she can tell, they're not thinking, boy, I've been alive for hundreds of days and I've never been able to walk, so I'll never be able to walk. That thought doesn't seem to arise for them. And they seem to be better off for it. And in fact, they don't even seem to have the sense, boy, you know, if I could just walk, I would be a better person. People would think better of me. I would think better of myself. I would finally have the self-confidence I've always lacked. You can tell who here has spent time with 1, 2-year-olds. How much they're laughing. Because these little kids have so little self-conscious awareness. So little. It's there. It's not that it's not there. It is there. And it's sort of fun to see it. But it's not like an adult self-conscious awareness. They're simple. They're just going to walk for some reason. They don't know. It seems to be happening. It's kind of fun. It's kind of scary. But it's not that big of a deal. My mother finds this extremely inspiring and something that would be best if we didn't lose. It'd be nice if we could keep that skill even while we go through life and develop others. There's a very fun Zen story, a mondo. I believe, I don't remember the Zen master right now. It may have been Master Joshu. In any case, there's a term. There was a term that is discussed quite a bit that, if I'm not mistaken, originated in the Taoist tradition of a perfect person, an ideal person, a true person. But it means more than true here. True, that word, how do I say? Our word true has been, the meaning of even it has been vastly narrowed over the centuries until we've gotten to the point now where it only means factually accurate. But that isn't the end of the meaning, that it's included, but it's not at all the end of the meaning of Jen or Shin, wouldn't you say? It has moral implications as well, wouldn't you say? It has a vast meaning, and so you could say a perfect person or a true real, authentic person. So someone asked the master, what is that? What is a perfect person? What's a real person? And his answer was so nice and Chinesey. He said, very nice the way they do it. He said, a baby with a beard 100 feet long. So what does that mean? Well, it means that we have a long beard, a very long beard of all of our experiences. All of our experiences add up and add up and add up. And we carry all those experiences. We learn how to be true to those experiences without ever losing the mind of a baby. That pure mind that doesn't expect this or that, doesn't judge this or that, isn't self-conscious. Harada Roshi talks about this a great deal, that when a baby is born into the world, they don't get born and then look around and say, wait a second, I don't think I like these circumstances. I don't know if I like this. I wish I was born into a different circumstance. They just come into the world and fully accept the circumstances because they don't know if they're good or bad. And they simply announce themselves without any self-conscious awareness. They just scream. They don't hold back because they're afraid of what people will think. And they don't judge others because of what they think about them. Circumstances are just accepted. And Harada Roshi talks about how important it is that we keep that state of mind for our whole lives. It isn't that we meet someone and then think, wait, you're not a good enough person. I want to meet someone else instead. Just like a baby, here it is. They're not able to judge and discriminate because they don't know enough. We want to keep that fresh, clear, innocent mind of not knowing for a whole life, even while we gather experiences. This is a very important part of this path, and we have instructions for how to do this, how to actually achieve this, right here. How is this actually done? Of course, we hear about it. Sounds like a good idea. But how is it done? Because, as you see, we're asked to behave in very difficult ways. We have to keep our bodily conduct pure. That's not easy. To live in ways, to actually behave, to act in ways that don't cause the destruction of life? Well, at first we might think, sure, that's not so hard, but is that true? It's very difficult to engage, to interact with others without stealing, without taking what isn't given. You might think, sure, that's no problem. I don't steal in overt ways, but is it really so easy? The closer we look, we may find it turns out to be very difficult. And in terms of sexuality, sexual relationships, turns out it's not so easy to avoid engaging in sexual relationships in hurtful, damaging ways. We might think it's not so hard, but later we may discover it's very hard. But that isn't enough. Our verbal conduct also. We have challenges there as well. To not lie, to not mislead. You may think, well, sure, I don't lie. But is that true? Perhaps that's a lie that we're telling to ourselves. If we look closely, we see it can be an enormous challenge to communicate at all without subtle deception. And as we speak, as we communicate, do we engage in meaningless chatter, wasting people's time? Wasting our own time? Do we engage in speech in ways that's harsh, hurtful, causing harm? Do we speak in ways that causes conflict, spreading rumors? As it says in the text, dividing those from these and these from those? Do we use our communication to create factions? To put down some people in order to raise up others? We may think verbal conduct not so hard, but if we look closely, there are great challenges. But it goes further. What about our thoughts, our mental conduct? Are we able to move through a day without engaging in thoughts about acquisition, about what I want and what I'm going to get? I'm going to get power of this kind. I'm going to make those people be the way I want them to be. Even, I'm going to get the right view on things. I'm going to get the right spiritual experience. Can we really move through a day without engaging in ill will? The satisfaction that comes from seeing others suffer? We may think it's not so hard, but look at the media. Look at how much joy we get. We're willing to pay a lot of money in order to see people get hurt. And even if we think, well, it's no problem, I don't like seeing other people get hurt, can we go through a day without the mental conduct of hurting ourselves? Of ill will towards ourselves? We're a person too. Can we even move through a day without engaging in thoughts of cruelty, of causing harm, because of the sense that if I cause someone to suffer, that will make things better? And again, even if we think, well, I don't plan out hurting others, is that the case for ourselves? Do we not believe that if we can hurt ourselves enough, we'll become a better person? We may think, mental conduct, no problem. When we look at this, it turns out to be a great challenge. But even if we do that, there's more. There's livelihood. Can we live in a way that's in accord? Can we make money, gain resources in a way that's accord with the precepts, with ethical conduct? We may again think, well, sure, it's not so hard, but then we take a closer look. And here, we're trying to do it. Turns out to be difficult. Trying to become better at fundraising, that we can have a good livelihood here. Pay off the loan for this place. Serve more people. How can that be done in a way that's truly honest, truly respectful to everyone? That we maintain close, intimate, loving relationships. Of course, we think it should be easy. Turns out that livelihood is very subtle. And it's more subtle than we might think, because let's say we get some money. What do we do with it? We might put it in a bank, we might invest it. But then what happens? That money goes somewhere. It's our money, but it goes somewhere. Maybe it goes to a company that's causing terrible damage in the world. It's destroying life. Are we responsible for that? We invested the money. Some income is coming from that. Are we responsible for that? We don't even know what's happening. How could we know? But isn't it our job to know? It becomes more and more confusing, and yet turns out to be even more confusing than that. Why? Because even if we achieve all that, the further challenge remains of, can we achieve all that without lauding ourselves and disparaging others? Can we do that? And we get to the point where we're not doing that subtly in order to build up an ego of superiority? Are we doing it without subtly building up scorn? The challenge is extremely high. And so, it's very kind of the Buddha to provide us with instructions on how to achieve this. The basic challenge that we've been facing for a long time now, and if we face again right here, as you see in this section, the basic challenge, the beginning challenge, the thing that we're striving for, is can we get to the point when those who purify their conduct without lauding themselves and disparaging others, in other words, those who purify their conduct for a non-egotistical reason, without self-righteousness, is that group more effective than the group of people who purify their conduct in order to build up sense of ego, superiority, self-righteousness? Now, this is a very subtle point I just made, so let me say it again. There's a certain motivation to do good. It's called ego. There's another motivation to do good. It's called compassion. Is it possible for those motivated by compassion to be more effective than those motivated by ego? That's the question. And it's an experiment that each of us can do, at least in our own lives, and even better, here we are, in our community. Can it be done? Because now we're getting involved in real power, in issues of power. And some people have more power than other people. Power is a limited resource. Is it possible for us, through compassion, to be effective in the world? This is a huge question for us. It's the beginning question. It's where this begins. It's our job here. This is ultimately our purpose in creating this community. Find a way to make that true in this world. Can we in this world make that the case? We're the ones we're experimenting on. And so the Buddha, in the very next section, gives us clear instructions on how to do that. And so, in encouraging us to continue on, to not be hypocrites, but to walk the very next step, he says, "Now, you may think we are possessed of shame and dread. Our bodily conduct, verbal conduct, and mental conduct have been purified, and our livelihood has been purified. That much is enough, and you may rest content with that much. But I inform you, I declare to you, you who seek the status of Shramana, do not fall short of the goal, while there is more to be done." And what more is there to be done? "Bhikkhus, you should train thus. We will guard the doors of our sense faculties. On seeing a form with the eye, we will not grasp at its signs and features. Since, if we left the eye faculty unguarded, evil, unwholesome states of covetousness and grief might invade us. We will practice the way of its restraint. We will guard the eye faculty. We will undertake the restraint of the eye faculty. On hearing a sound with the ear, an odor with the nose, flavor with the tongue, tangible with the body, on cognizing a mind object, cognition, thought, with the mind, we will not grasp at its signs and features. Since, if we left the mind faculty unguarded, evil, unwholesome states of covetousness and grief might invade us. We will practice the way of its restraint. We will guard the mind faculty. We will undertake the restraint of the mind faculty." This is extremely powerful and often misunderstood. This brings us back to the shame and dread. It teaches us how to be sure that our shame and dread is wholesome and healthy, not the kind of shame and dread that we usually get involved in, which is just a way of creating a lot of drama. As we know, we really like drama. Shinzen often talks about the fact that a retreat is the best evidence that we like drama, because we come into a place like this where pretty much nothing is happening, certainly nothing dramatic, and then we make it into something dramatic, and we can watch ourselves. Somebody's making a sound. Well, typically, in other cases, when there was a lot going on that's really dramatic, and they were making that sound, we wouldn't even notice, much less care. But now that everything's peaceful and quiet, we're trying to maintain our accustomed drama level. But we have very little to work with. So we have to build it up and build it up until we get to the point when finally it's really bad that they're making that sound. And we can congratulate ourselves on having made it. It was a lot of hard work. But finally I'm really mad. Whew, what a relief. Or we have, not to discourage you, but try to follow me here. A little relaxation. I know it feels like a lot. I don't want to discourage you, but it's a little. Sorry. But it has to be a lot. It's so good. I can finally meditate. This must be true shamatha. I have finally attained nirvana. This is it. This is the purpose of the path. And now I will spread the true Dharma Everyone can experience this. Becomes so exciting that we finally experienced a bit of relaxation. But wait, they're making that sound again. Oh no. They destroyed my nirvana. We make it into a big deal. Either way. Feels like a big deal. And that is the point that's made here. A lot of the time we read, we will guard the doors of our sense faculties on seeing a form with the eye. And some of you are reading this, so you can confirm what I'm about to say. You can read it. You can try to look at this and see if it's like, this is a copy, you'll note. This is a copy. Okay, so you can look closely and you decide if you think that I changed it. If you think maybe I printed something else out and put it here. You can see there's a lot of evidence that it's a copy, that I didn't change it. Yes, I didn't fabricate this text. Okay? Because many of you may believe, despite what's written here, that the original must have said, on seeing a form with the eye, you shouldn't see that. Right? Many of you believe that, trust me. Many of you think that the Buddha taught, you shouldn't see and you shouldn't hear and you shouldn't feel and you shouldn't think. If you're thinking, then you're stupid. You should stop doing that by now. But you look at this closely. Read the section. On cognizing a mind object with the mind, you shouldn't. Take a look and see if it's written there. Stop it. Yes? It's not there. On the contrary, it says this, we will not grasp at its signs and features. That is not saying that you won't see or hear or feel or think. It's saying that when something arises, a phenomenon arises, the tendency of our senses is to grab on to it. The term is here, nimitta gahi. Nimitta is a sign of it. It's a characteristic. Nimitta is used in a number of different ways, but here it just means it's a sign, a characteristic of something. And gahi is related to the English word grasp, which means that you grab onto it. It's the grabbing on that we're restraining. There's a tendency to grab on or push away. Something's happening. Somebody's making a sound. And so we grab onto that. Or we have a bit of relaxation, so we grab onto that. That's what we're restraining. The tendency to turn things into something overly dramatic. Turn it into a big deal. A big problem or a big solution that we get fixated on. Now, the thing that Shinzen talks about the most is the technique. As we're in a retreat, there's not a lot to get excited about. There's not a lot to make drama about. So what do we make drama about? Typically the technique. We get really overwhelmed regarding what technique we should use. And so we start using a technique, and it works. And we think, this is the true technique. This is the true way. This will solve all of my problems forever. And we grab onto that technique, only to discover that it stops working. And then we feel distraught. We feel deflated. We feel betrayed by that stupid technique. So we search for another one, and it seems to work. So we grab onto that one, think, finally, this is the one truth. All else is wrong. And then it's wrong. Then we feel discouraged and deflated. That is the process that we're restraining. It's no longer, okay, here it is. This sense experience is the one. Grab on. Oh no, not that one. Get rid of it. Because if that happens, then this phrase, make this into, if you can, take this phrase and study it. Pay very close attention to it. If we left the mind faculty unguarded, or whatever faculty, and here's the phrase, evil, unwholesome states of covetousness and grief might invade us. Please attend to that phrase. It is brilliant. It's one of the most brilliant things anyone has ever said. Evil, unwholesome states of covetousness and grief. Covetousness means yes. Grief means no. And note this covetousness and grief. What does the Buddha call that? Evil. This word, papa, is just like the word evil in English. Has the same extreme connotations. You would literally use that word for the things we use the word evil for, like killing or raping children. It is an extreme word. Why would that word be used here? Consider that carefully. Why would you, it seems out of place perhaps. Why would that be evil? But the reason it would be evil, the reason we'd call it that, is because of the impact it has on our actions. Consider, why is it that we would kill or rape or steal? What's the underlying perception that would cause that behavior? It is this grasping on to things. I want that land. You're on that land. So you need to go. That is evil. One of the largest genocides in world history took place in Brazil. But most people don't know that. And in fact, the news of a genocide in Brazil never spread around the world because the UN determined in a formal study that there was no genocide in Brazil, despite the fact that hundreds of thousands of native people were ruthlessly slaughtered. And why was that? Because the colonialist farmers who took the rainforest from those people made the case at the UN. This is literally the case that was made. They said, we didn't want to kill them. We didn't enjoy killing them. We just had to kill them to take the land. It's not our fault that they died. We just wanted the land. It's not genocide because we didn't intend to kill them. And the UN accepted that. And accepted, okay, that's reasonable. It's not a genocide in that case. This is pointing at that our reasoning for engaging in these evil activities is because a sense perception arises, like land, and we want it, we covet it. And once that happens, there is no telling where it will end. But it's even more subtle than that, because the shame and the dread that we engage in that is not healthy, not the healthy kind of shame and dread, but the unhealthy kind of shame and dread that we so often engage in, again is caused by this covetousness and grief. We're practicing, and something arises, and we enter covetousness and grief. Because of that, the shame that we have is not healthy and helpful. It turns into, oh no, and we grieve. We don't take it as something exciting and compelling. The reason this matters is that as we see in the world today, as Rosie has so often said, people who care more are often debilitated by that care itself. We care about the world. We want the world to be a better place. But what is it that drives us to make the world a better place? often covetousness and grief. We covet a better world and we grieve what's happening. And because of that, the shame that comes up is one that debilitates us, crushes us, makes us less capable of having an impact. And we see this happen again and again, that those people who care more can do less precisely because of the internal process of caring, not being compassion, but on the contrary, being covetousness and grief. So these are extremely practical instructions for making the world a better place. It may seem, because it's written in confusing language and it's written from a different culture, it's thousands of years ago, and did this guy even really exist? And even if he did, he was different from us because he lived in India. So who knows what's going on? I don't know. Let me get back to meditation. But actually, this, if you carefully examine it, are practical, step-by-step instructions on how to purify your mind of precisely the factors that prevent us not only from achieving awakening, but also from transforming the world. So please, look at this very closely. This phrase, evil, unwholesome states of covetousness and grief. Find ways of staying with this moment. Always feeling excitement about this next challenge to do what we've never done before, without being drawn on by a sense of covetousness. That baby learning to walk isn't coveting, oh yes, I'll be able to walk. It isn't grieving, oh no, I can't walk. It's just fresh. There's some amazement in it. Well, maybe, who knows? It's strange to think, oh, maybe, who knows, could be more effective at allowing us to take effective action than covetousness and grief. That seems to be so effective at causing us to take action. Why would it be that being like a baby and not really knowing what to do next? How could that be more effective? But it is. And my evidence for that is that those of us who are destroying the world, who are destroying life on earth, aren't trying to. And we're doing great. Those of us who are trying to save life on earth are really trying hard. And we're failing. See that clearly. There's a different state of mind that enables transformation. And once you get involved in the evil and unwholesome states of covetousness and grief, that natural creativity is blocked. And shame and dread stop being something that are manifestations of self-respect and other respect, and turn into debilitating forces that inhibit our creative, productive, compassionate action. We have the opportunity now to practice this. We sit, and notice, covetousness is arising. Let go of the grasping to the perception. In other words, bring equanimity to the perception that's causing that covetousness. Let go. Stop pushing away the perception. In other words, bring equanimity to the perception that's causing that grief. And a new kind of trust, a new kind of faith arises that we have to try in order to discover if it will work, if it is effective. Please, give yourself this opportunity and see what happens if you experiment with walking, even if you've never done it before.